Welcome and thank you for being here. My name is Vicki Kelly. I'm the founder and president of Natural State Burial Association. I have known Richard for more than 30 years. Richard asked that I conduct his Celebration of Life memorial service. It is an honor to do so. Welcome to each person joining us today. Welcome to everyone who knew him, loved him, and welcome to each person who was affected, whether moved or riled by something the man wrote or said. Welcome. I would like to acknowledge Fayetteville Public Television and Executive Director Dan Robinson, the staff and production crew for airing live this memorial service for Richard. I'm certain that he is quite simply delighted over it. Once more, we're on the air with Richard Drake. We express our great appreciation to those of you who may have made charitable contributions in memory of Richard S. Drake. Organizations that he and Tracy support are the National Organization for Women, International Fund for Animal Welfare, Habitat for Humanity, Guiding Eyes for the Blind, or the charity of your choice. We're especially grateful to Fayetteville Public Television for hosting the reception immediately following today's service. Richard S. Drake, age 64, of Fayetteville, died at home on Sunday, March the 3rd, 2019. Richard was born in Liverpool, England on May 15th, 1954, to Stanley and Audrey Drake. He was preceded in death by his father, retired U.S. Air Force Strategic Air Command Stanley Drake, Jr. Richard is survived by his wife, Tracy Reeves Kataya, his mother, Audrey Drake of Fayetteville, sisters, Marianne Drake of South Carolina, Janet Oxford of Fayetteville, his nieces and nephews, Sheila Oxford Cromwell and her children, Jeremy Oxford and his wife Kim and their children, Peter Oxford and his wife Kate and their daughter of Fayetteville, his nephews Christopher Harbit and Eric Harbit of Charleston, South Carolina. I would like to open with a prayer. Reverend Evan Garner, St. Paul's Episcopal Church.
Great source of all life and all beauty, we pause to give thanks for one we knew and loved, a husband and son and brother and uncle and friend. We thank you for the gift of passion and devotion and creativity and intellect that were manifest in the life of Richard. And we thank you for making it possible for Richard to share that with us and with all those who were touched by him and his work. We pray for those who mourn his death, his loss. We pray that they would find comfort and hope in the joyful memories that they share and in the love that they have for one another. Help the work that Richard did, the causes that he championed, the endeavors that he pursued. Help that work continue in all of us, that we, grateful for his presence among us, grateful for his voice in this community, might carry that work even unto its completion. For all this, we pause in deep gratitude. Amen.
All week, I've been talking to folks who knew him, the stories I have heard about Richard. Tracy, the man you loved was a character, wasn't he? May I begin with you? May I try to convey some sense of the love and devotion between the two of you? You, showing up from Dallas, a dancer, a choreographer, a physical therapist, an artist. This is Tracy's work, by the way. Wow. A cute and feisty young woman who impressed him mightily. Yeah, you, Tracy, the founder and director of Dancescapes Movement Theater. You choreographed dance routines and arranged performance opportunities for the differently abled, wheelchairs and ballet. Tracy, you were innovative, visionary, professional. You were compassionate and sensitive and dedicated to your mission that we all can dance. Richard saw that. He loved those characteristics in you. He believed in you. You two were a match, and your journey together began. When I asked how you managed over 20 years with Richard, you remarked, I just let Richard be Richard. Unique indeed, and he didn't mind being different. You shared some surprising trivia. Richard never drove a car. Didn't care to, rode the bus. Despite his vast, extensive compilation of writings, Richard was a two-finger hunt and peck typist. And that he used, finally, reluctantly, a flip phone. You spoke of your husband as a reader extraordinaire, and you shared with me how overwhelmed you are by the innumerable volumes of books he's left behind. Books he devoured, books he loved, a lifetime collection of books. The man loved books. And Tracy, Richard loved you. In good times, in tough times, and for all time. When an issue was close to his heart, Richard would write, always with jazz playing in the background. In his street jazz blog, he wrote about your cancer. He wrote about his. He rejoiced when you received your all clear status. He bravely admitted that he never wanted to reach a 10 on the pain chart. We share our hardest times with the ones we love the most. You were loving and brave, and his pain is now ended. Tracy, you will miss him fiercely. And when your grief is too hard, remember those around you today, in this room, at this moment, and reach out to someone. We will share your pain. We will share some memories. We will get you through this. And we will even help you find a way to deal with Richard's books. I would like to acknowledge Richard's mother, Audrey Price Drake, the bride of Stanley, the military wife, the woman now grieving the loss of her firstborn child, her son, Richard. What to do with Richard? He was a different kind of kid. Marching to his own drum beat kind of kid. But he was your kid. And you loved him perfectly. You loved him perfectly. Tell me how Richard could have become the man that we know, love, respect, admire, if not for the childhood experiences that you, his mother, provided. How utterly fascinating was his time with you in the family home, wherever it was at the time. Because of your husband's military assignments, your family lived in 4 different countries while Richard was growing up. Born in London, lived in Holland, attended school in Belgium and Germany, and he has written that he loved it. Your husband's military rations included cigarettes, which he would trade for gas rations. You, Audrey, save those gas rations and use them to take day trips with your children, showing them the most amazing places. London's Westminster Abbey, St. Paul's Cathedral, Buckingham Palace, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum, riding the tube around London, taking the train to Banbury, to Liverpool, to visit grandparents, the Tower of London, Big Ben, Parliament, Hyde Park, and Stratford-on-Avon, the Baird's birthplace. We can blame her. No wonder Richard's writings were so prolific. Audrey took her children to Winston Churchill's funeral. She took them to see Queen Elizabeth dedicate the JFK Memorial. There, they saw Jackie Kennedy and her children, and Robert and Edward Kennedy. She took them through the beautiful countryside of Cornwall to visit Sir Francis Drake's home, to Runnymede, where the Magna Carta was signed. You took them camping. You took them to Bavaria. Fascinating, exciting. Bravo. Thank you. We know that for a time Richard considered ordination as an Episcopal priest. He reconsidered, but he claimed these labels proudly: Christian, feminist, animal lover, man of social conscience. Your son became a writer, author, editor, interviewer, producer, historian. He was respected, honorable, and loved by many. Job well done, Audrey. May you know peace all of your days. Richard's sisters, Mary Ann Drake Harbit and Janet Oxford, told me some stories about their older brother, recalling that they have no family photo without Richard in glasses. And each time they saw him, he had less and less hair. He was a funny, lovable kid who loved his dog Brownie, was a Boy Scout, published his high school newspaper, and was on the wrestling team in junior high. Richard was a sci-fi fanatic. He never forgot an episode or a character, be it from Lost in Space, Doctor Who, or Star Trek. Mary Ann once threw one of his toy trucks over the banister, breaking it. He never forgot it. He never forgave her. And he never failed to bring it up when conversation allowed. He was 5. Richard loved his toy soldiers, but play to him was a highly orchestrated affair, strategically set up and executed. It was not a game. In Zweibrücken, all the commentary on TV was in German. Young Richard sat across the room from Mom, translating everything they were saying. She believed it until she realized He was not translating, he was making it up. He laughed and said, "Well, Mom, kept you happy, didn't it?" His bedroom in Germany was covered from floor to ceiling, wall to wall with books, arranged in Richard's own categorized system. And these two sisters thought it was funny to mess with Richard by moving a book. Yeah, Tracy, we understand about the books. To his nieces and nephews, the in-laws and outlaws gathered here to honor the man who holds a place in your hearts and in your family circle. I was told that Richard would call on birthdays and holidays and special anniversaries, that he asked about everyone in the family, about old friends and high school acquaintances, that he made an effort to stay connected. He even wrote letters to his mom. And while it is true that Richard's public persona and professional reputation are founded on the fine skill of mercilessly applying wit and sarcasm to difficult and controversial subjects, it was conveyed to me that when it was his family, when it came to his relatives, Richard often chose the grace of space instead. Sometimes Richard used distance and a respectful silence to temper his feelings and opinions when hard topics were on the table. His love for his family mattered more than winning an argument or debating the issues. There is no debate. This we know. Only the love is real, and only love remains. Richard S. Drake was passionately committed to public access television as a vehicle for community engagement, individual expression, and freedom of speech for all. He was actively involved with this public access broadcasting station through decades of challenges, changes in management, and upgrades in technology and equipment. And through it all, Richard continued to volunteer, teach, promote, and produce. From the original Fayetteville Open Channel to Access for Fayetteville, to Community Access TV, to the organization effective and most appreciated that we have today, known as Fayetteville Public Television. Claiming he had a low threshold for boredom, Richard recorded widely diverse programs and interviewed countless individuals, providing opportunities for people to tell their story, present their cause, and connect to our community. On the Air with Richard Drake first aired July 1991, running 27 plus years. Besides being a talk show host, interviewer, community producer, workshop instructor with this access station, Richard was a writer. He was journalist, columnist for The Grapevine and the Little Rock Free Press. Richard was editor and writer of the Ozark Gazette, and his blog, Street Jazz, with nearly 1,500 blog posts. He published 2 books, Ozark Mosaic, Adventures in Arkansas Alternative Journalism 1990 to 2002, and Freedom Run. Now, Richard Drake had all the hallmarks of genius IQ. How many of you recall having a conversation with Richard, and you saw that spark ignite. You knew some idea had hatched, and things were going to get interesting. Honestly, a lot of Richard was simply over my head. His rapid crossfire association from something I said to a relevant comparison out of some other culture, religion, country, book, movie, I felt wowed and a little culturally deprived. It was as if he had privy to a limitless supply of reference points. Whether through aggravation or admiration, through agitation or appreciation, Richard kept us engaged. Our response mechanisms trying to process his last statement while he was jumping ahead to the next. Today, it seems he's still in the lead, knowing more than I know, leaving me again in awe. I would like now to address Richard's co-workers and associates who became his closest friends. I need to especially mention Chuck Roberts and Heather Drain, Dan Vega, Delaney Bartlett, and Mark Swaney. I will now deliver this address from Street Jazz, Richard Drake, May 25th, 2018. I quote, "When I first began doing my show way back in the last decade of the 20th century, I was uncomfortably aware that I was regarded as the talent. The sort of fellow who sits in front of the camera and talks, but doesn't know a damn thing about how a program is actually put together. It isn't a compliment. There comes a point where you have to decide which direction you want to go in. Do you want simply to bask in whatever glory there is in grinning like a loon for the camera? Or do you want to show some respect for what your crew does, learn what they do, and help where you can? It's sort of like a path to enlightenment. Even just learning about microphones and how to work a camera can be liberating, especially learning to run a camera with some proficiency, because then you can irritate the hell out of your director by suggesting various camera angles. It's good to know how to work the soundboard and even to direct. It helps to keep you humble once you realize the amount of hard work your crew is doing and is capable of doing. And it helps you not only because you learn not to make unreasonable demands on your crew, but knowing something about television can help you plan your show a little better. When I first started, I got off on being a star, such as I was. But that passed quickly, especially when you realize the limits of your own knowledge and abilities. This is a fitting time to tell you who is actually responsible for any success the shows may have had, and why I have never become bored with it, even after 2 decades. Nobody in front of the camera ever looks good without the hard work of the folks behind the scenes. And over the years, I've been blessed with some of the hardest working folks I've known, men and women ranging all the way from their teens to their 70s and from all walks of life. From directors to camera operators to call screeners to folks who work the soundboard. I owe you a huge debt. And even more As with all the public access, you represent diversity in Northwest Arkansas. And then there are the guests. I have a very low threshold for boredom, so I try never to have the same sort of show twice in a row, and I've been fortunate that so many have agreed to sit with me for a good, old-fashioned conversation. I am really grateful that a few have even agreed to come back more than once or twice, earning frequent flyer miles on the show. Smart guests make me look smart. I will be forever grateful for that. I figured out a few months ago that over 2,500 individuals have appeared on the show since 1991. And that's a pretty nice number by any standard. I think that the reason so many like to appear on public access interview shows as opposed to programs on commercial media, it's because we run the entire interview. We don't edit, not for time. I think people appreciated that. Perhaps we'll do something in public later this year. But I couldn't let today go by without saying thanks to one and all. End quote. I have a closing benediction for Richard S. Drake. We each knew him as we knew him. The voice on the show, the face on the screen, the man scripting words, the man behind the camera. We knew him as husband, son, brother, uncle. We knew him as colleague, cohort, comrade, friend. Now we know him as something other. Angel, spirit, stardust, memory. We each know him as we know him, and he will not be forgotten. Peace and joy to each of you, and thank you for coming.